All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for our November 2022 grid call. I am pleased to have my friend and president of HAPCO, Greg Wertman, on the call. I have known Greg now. I was thinking about this morning. I think we're coming up on 20 years now. Greg and I, well, Greg is a friend of my father, which is how I originally met him. And then
I was going to say, how did you meet Greg when you were?
Yeah, no, I was like 16. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I was a young teenager introduced to Greg through my father. And then as I built my real estate sales business, but mainly my real estate investing business, Greg and HAPCO have been huge resources, mainly sounding boards, but help with an eviction and help with structuring a proper lease and how to navigate this lovely city of Philadelphia. So I'm going to let Greg start by just introducing himself and HAPCO a little bit, and then I have a couple of prepared questions, but please, everybody on the call, chime in, and we have Greg's time for a half hour, and we are lucky to do so. So Greg, if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about you and HAPCO, and we'll go from there.
You got it. So how did I get started in this? I was a teacher, inner city Philadelphia. I got started in a school that wasn't very pleasant, but neighborhood change. We got some really great teachers in, and we wrote a wonderful grant for performing arts. At some point, I started having children and realized that the income wasn't what it should be. Went to and got my MBA at St. Joseph's, thinking to start my own business. I played a lot of tennis. Asked my first wife way too much, but be that as it may, I had a party for some friends that had them come over to my house at the time, and they were impressed that I did the deck and I did the kitchen and I did this and I did that. And they looked at me and said, "We don't know which end of our hammer to hold up, and we're making money renting properties. You should get into it." So I said, I couldn't find the right business. So I got into it back in 1987 and started investing in Manioc. I didn't get it right before the bubble, but I got it somewhere on the way up. So it was it worked out real well. So I went into the locker room and I said, "Hey, I just bought my first property," and about 3 guys at the same time, "You got to join HAPCO." And that's how it all started, which is crazy. One of the guys, who's my best friend, was on the board, got me involved right away. And I've been involved ever since. What is HAPCO? HAPCO is basic definition of HAPCO is it's a place where a landlord investor can go get answers, get a little education, but most of all, HAPCO advocates for the rental property owners. We don't like to use the word landlord. We kind of, if you go to our website, you won't see it. One day I woke up and I said, I don't like that word. So we go by rental property owners or just owners. Let me let's start with a mission statement, which I think is really important. Most people never get to that page, and it's unfortunate. But our mission statement is that we're dedicated to preservation, expansion, and improvement of low to moderate income rental housing, along with market rate rental and investment properties. HAPCO Philadelphia is devoted to reversing the spread of blight in the city of Philadelphia. There it is in a nutshell. I would say a good 50% of our members are mom and pops. We have big ones, we have little ones, but the majority are mom and pops. And why is that? Because the majority of landlords are mom and pop.
Greg, can we actually spend a little bit of time on that? I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a lot of our audience.
I'm good.
Yeah, good. Okay.
So the crux of the matter is that we have around 84%, and this is, by the way, is nationwide. 74% of all low to moderate income housing, this is nationwide, is owned by mom and pops. Mom and pops traditionally only own 1 or 2 properties. Okay. The other good thing about mom and pops, they usually live in the neighborhood where they have their units. And during, unfortunately, during the pandemic with the eviction moratorium, those were the people that got hurt the most. Those are the ones that are going out of business. We've lost almost 1,000 members. 1,000. There are 3. We're down to less than 2. And they're all the small guys that had to sell out. They couldn't hold out. And unfortunately, in the city of Philadelphia, as Brian pointed out, it's rough. And you really, the way you make it in this business, you have to be one step ahead of all the regulations. And if you don't know the regulations, shame on you, and it's going to come and bite you. And that's where HAPCO comes in. So we'll go back to that mom and pop thing, but I wanted to move on to what does HAPCO offer? So we have an eviction services, as Brian mentioned. We have a forum group. Now, all it is like a chat room just for members. That's huge. I just was on there this morning. They're talking about one guy needs a plumber in West Philadelphia. One guy's having a problem with rodents. So it's a mishmash, and it's a great selling point for HAPCO. It really is a wonderful way to not only ask questions, but get answers too. We have a Home Depot discount. We have monthly educational seminars. We have every 2 months, we have a thing called Ask the Lawyer a Question. We have a wonderful in-house lawyer by the name of Paul Cohen. He is on every committee throughout the state and the city. He's really on his game, and he's very gracious with HAPCO. And he does this where you can ask a question. I think it's $10 is all it is. Can you imagine? Coming out. And Brian, guess what I have here?
Yeah, the handbook.
It's the 169-page handbook. Now, 10 years ago, a little less, about 10 years ago, I put together a handbook along with Paul Cohen, the lawyer. And I think it was 87 pages front and back. As you can see, things have changed. First of all, what did we learn? You never print a handbook. It becomes obsolete the day you print it, you send it to the printers, it's obsolete, especially lately. Things are changing rapidly now. So what we're going to do is this is going on to our website, PDF form. The good news is you'll be able to look things up. And the best thing is we're going to change it. We're going to keep it up to date. We're going to stay up to date with it. That's really important. The other thing that we're almost ready to pull the plug on is a comprehensive lease just for Philadelphia. And if it's not just for Philadelphia, that lease that may be thrown out in court. Who knows? The way the judges are right now, they're so pro-tenant over there. They're looking for any excuse to throw the eviction out. So we're going to come out with a lease. And the other good thing about this lease, again, you'll be able to go on, download it. As things change in the city, as things change, we'll be able to change with them and merely go in and make the appropriate changes. Our office staff is available to answer questions. Now, they can answer questions as long as they're not legal questions. We also have NTN, National Tenant Network. We have a discount through them. So that's basically the overall view of HAPCO and what we have to offer. Well, let's get back to what else we do that's really important. And this is where a lot of people miss the boat, especially with young investors. The young investors are out there going, man, I know it. I got it. I'm staying up with it. I don't need HAPCO. I can answer my own questions. I can look it up. We have Google. Good for you. But what you don't have is you don't have somebody down in City Hall fighting and going at it with these wonderful city council people that we have. Let me give you one instance. Lead paint. We fought lead paint for 17 years before it ever was enacted. We fought it. We had our own, we had a study done by a university that we paid 17 years ago to stop the city. Eventually, hey, they wear you down, other people get in, and we lose some of our good contacts, and they did pull the trigger. Our wonderful Helen Gim, who is so anti-landlord, it's not even funny. Of course, she was the one behind her Brooks. It would be Gim, Gutierrez, and Brooks. Those are the three people that are pro-tenant. And it was up to them. Landlords would have to put all these people up for free. But thank God they're not. So back to Helen. So Helen gets her way. What she didn't get, and we fought for with other members of city council, was she wanted to have inspections every year. Does anybody know when, how often the inspections are now?
Every 5?
Every 4 years.
4.
4. So one of the most, and that's the thing that everybody gets. In my mind, one of the most important things is for us to be in City Hall fighting them every step of the way. Yesterday, who was I with yesterday? I was with a coalition. So what we've done, we've gotten smart. We formed a coalition, GPAR, the Apartment Association. We have other people that are involved in this to go at it with the city, because we can't do it individually. And what are the latest thing that we dealt with yesterday? I hope everybody's sitting down. Sprinkler systems. Yep.
That's the next one.
Yep. 75 feet. Buildings over 75 feet need to be retrofitted with sprinkler systems. Now,
is that for single family too, or just multifamily?
Doesn't matter. It's a residence. If anybody resides in it, they're going to do it. Here's the good news. You know what the good news is? It includes condominiums. And those people have a very powerful voice. And it's sponsored, by the way, by Mark Squilla by way of Bobby Heenan. This was Bobby Heenan's bill. This was his bill.
Bobby's a little busy right now. How's he working on that?
And who do you think this bill is going to help? Oh, the steam pipe fitters. Yeah. Exactly. There are 500 steam pipe fitters in the union in Philadelphia, of which only 11 live in Philly. The rest of them, we found out, live over in Jersey. Wonderful. Give them that money. So we are definitely going to fight this. We are, the coalition is now reaching out to condominium associations, because we know they're going to be our strong suit. And of course, I'm sure there's going to be carve outs, so we've got to keep our eye on that. You know, PHA, I'm sure it's going to be a carve out, which you shake your head and you say, what? Wasn't that last fire over in Fairmont a PHA house? Yep, it was. But what is our fear for small investors? Our fear is this, is that you look at the history of Philadelphia. No, we are not involved in this because it's building 75 feet or taller. Once this gets implemented, once these buildings start getting retrofitted, you can almost bet they're going to come back and they're going to lower it. 3 stories, definitely 4, but I'm thinking 3 to 4 stories at this point. Who knows? They could get crazy and go to 2. What do I know? But that's our fear, and that's why HAPCO's involved, and that's why we're in there now, because we've learned from our past experiences that you cannot assume anything, and we certainly don't on this one, because I don't like the smell of it. And it's certainly, I mean, we still have investors in HAPCO that this is going to definitely affect. And if anybody's looked into the research on this, you're talking anywhere from 17 to 2,700 a unit. And again, that could go up, because if you hit asbestos or other issues, it will definitely increase that price.
So yeah, that's terrifying. But you mentioned the sprinklers, and you had mentioned that to me offline. What are some other things that investors, whether they're new or seasoned or growing like myself, should be aware of that the city is looking to implement, and how do we, via HAPCO, get involved to push back?
Let's go back and say, what should you know already? One of the first things, Greg, what are the 2 or 3 things that you feel like, you know, are regulations that people should know or may not know? Okay, that's a good question. I was going to get to that. Thank you. And the reason I know that is unlike other past presidents, we had 2 older ladies run the show. When I became president, they left because they knew I was changing things up. So I sat in the office. It was during COVID. I had plenty of time. I'm retired, semi. So I took all the phone calls, and I took them for almost a year. I was in there. So I kind of really had to understand the feel, so I could hire the right people to do the right job. And I knew what I wanted. Modernize the office and bring it up to the 21st century. Number 1, this is so important. The reason it's important is anytime you want to say, I need to file for an eviction, what's my first question? What kind of lease do you have? Now, why do I ask that? It's real simple. In Philadelphia, a few years ago, they passed a wonderful legislation called Just Cause. By the way,
anything like this comes from California. You can just, if it's out in California, it just makes its way by osmosis over to Philadelphia. So this was out in California years ago. And what is just cause? You have to have just cause in order to evict a person. What could that be? Well, let's say the person's lease ends, and this person has been a pain in not only your butt, but in all your wonderful tenants around them. If you have a lease that's less than a year, you cannot evict. You cannot evict. So what's the most important thing? Everybody should have a yearly lease that renews yearly. That is probably the most important thing right there. That's number one on the list, because if you do have to file for an eviction, and I know I've never gone through it, but let's say you do. If you don't have that year lease, you're dead. Secondly, make sure your license is up to date. We get people that evict and the licenses aren't up to date. If they're not up to date, they can't collect that rent. That gets thrown out. What else? Again, one of the most important things, the reason I haven't had an eviction, and this is, look, we can all get a stinker now and then, but I meet with people, I talk to people, I get as much information, I get my own feel for them. I haven't used National, yes, I have used National Tenant Network, but I haven't used them in a long time. I get an employment verification and all that. I do all that on my own. But the other thing I do is communication, communication, communication. I'm coming in because I need to check this. I'm coming in to check that. If they are a good tenant, they love that. They love the fact that I'm coming in, I'm checking, I'm making sure that things are working correctly. I come in the wintertime before winter sets in, make sure all the windows are right. I show them the windows. Sometimes the top window falls down, leaves a gap. Hey, go over all that with them, and they appreciate it. Having that relationship with a tenant is so important. It's so important.
Yeah, Greg, I think that's a really good point. And when I was newer to the business, you helped me with that. It's not about what the NTN result says. They have to pass the gut check as well. And that all needs to be, of course, keeping fair housing in mind. A lot of us are licensed, but yeah, we have to be mindful of that stuff as well.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too down into the politics, but I think it's important. I know former Councilman Dom, who's a friend to a lot of us in this business, and others have thrown their hat in the ring. Does HAPCO have any early thoughts on the Democratic primary race for mayor in next summer? Who they'll support, I should say.
Oh, before I get on to that,
okay,
to go back to the just cause. So what does HAPCO do? Guess what we did for that just cause legislation? Why is it that you're allowed to have a yearly lease and not be affected by it? Because of HAPCO. We got to the Councilman Jones. We have a good relationship with him.
No, I can't.
He also has family members that are HAPCO members. And we pointed out the flaw in it. And that's why it is written the way it is, where you can have a year lease and this does not affect you. So let's get back to the mayoral candidate. HAPCO is going to, by the way, HAPCO will come next year before the February primary. We are going to have a forum with all the candidates. So members and non-members will be able to come and, get a feel for what's going on here. I would say 6 months, one of the first people to declare was Maria Kiona Sanchez. I met with her, oh my God, a long time ago, just to discuss things and get her feel for everything. And what I've been trying to do is meet with the candidates as they announce their candidacy. Who do we like? Well, I can tell you right now, having met with just only a few, I love Rebecca Reinhardt.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. Smart. She knows as much about rental property owners and their plight than anybody that I've ever met in City Hall. She's really on it. She's really bright. Does she have a chance? I don't think so. And this is the thing we have to weigh. We have to weigh what horse do we think is gonna come over the finish line first? Derek Greene is a member of HAPCO. Derek Greene also has family members that are members of HAPCO, and he's been very good to us. Now, we have candidates, I guess at this point, we haven't really honed in on. Of course, Alan Dom is an obvious one. But we do have candidates that we feel comfortable with, and we have candidates that we certainly don't want in there. And we all know who that is, Helen Gim and Parker. I mean, there's not even a doubt about that one.
And Greg, sorry, just real fast, for those who aren't aware, Rebecca Reinhardt was the former city controller who really got to look at the books of the city on the back end and was nauseated. That's the word I'll use. She spoke on a HAPCO call about a year ago, and I was very impressed. And then Derek Greene, if I'm not mistaken, was a councilman at large. If I'm wrong, please correct me.
Yes.
Okay. Who, like Alan left, stepped down to run for mayor. So go ahead.
Right. So basically, we have Jeff, what's his name, from the supermarket guy, just declared, and yeah, he just declared. Then we have Alan, and we have Maria, and we have Green, and we have Parker, and so far, I mean, it's very interesting. Gim is she's really playing it close to the vest right now. She has not announced, and of course, she has to retire from city council. It's almost like I want her to announce and then also lose, and then we get rid of her all the way around. But that would be probably a pipe dream on my part. But the most important thing is that we know who we don't want in there. We know who we're going to go. And oh, by the way, that brings me to another really interesting thing, how these things happen. But last night I just happened to run into an old friend at the Rittenhouse Grill where we were having our board meeting. And he said, hey, I just came from a meeting, and he starts throwing out these names, and they're some of the biggest hitters in the city. And they are now forming a coalition because they have who they want as well. And I think we're going to probably throw our hat in the ring behind them. I mean, the bigger the coalition, the better, and the more weight, obviously, it's going to carry. And these guys have deep, deep pockets, and they're business people, so we are all on the same page with this.
I think most of us on the call, whether we are realtors or rental property owners or people who represent those who have a shared interest in that whoever's going to be leading the city next, it would be much appreciated if they would have a little bit more understanding of what we go through on a day-to-day basis. And my personal opinion aside, I do not believe this current administration has done that, so we are looking to build on that. Couple minutes left. If somebody on this call is themselves or has a client who's interested in HAPCO, how can they learn more about it? How can they become a member? How can they get involved?
Very good. So HAPCO Philadelphia has a wonderful website that we've really done a great job. We hired a PR firm, marketing firm, and they help us out a lot with it. There's an article after article every day. There's a new news article up there that's pertinent to the industry. So go there and you can join. It's $200 to start, and then to rejoin it's $150.
And just to be clear, that's per year, not per month.
Per year.
Yes.
Per year. Right. If you have clients and you're overseeing their real estate, and let's say they want to get involved, they can get involved. But if you file for an eviction, they have to be a member. It can't come from the company that you represent. What was the other thing? Let me talk about one more thing before I end. It was asked of me, what are the most important things? And I just mentioned one thing, but here's the thing. If you really, really, really need to stay up on everything that's going on down in City Hall and all the requirements that are required of every rental property owner in the city of Philadelphia, because that's when you get into trouble. You have no idea how many phone calls we take from people that don't know the law, and there are members, and they've been members for God only knows how long. And again, there are instances when even I'm shaking my head, and I've never heard of this before. Well, during COVID, it was very interesting. A lot of people were dumping their properties because they had people in them. They weren't getting paid. And they said, you know what, I just sell it the way it is. They started the eviction process. And so they told the buyer, they said, oh, I already got the eviction process started. In fact, it's in court right now. I have a court date to show them the court date. you'll just take over. Nope, that doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, once the new owner buys the property, the whole process has to start all over again. And I can't tell you how many cases we had like that. It was really frightening, and those people really got screwed.
Yeah, that's yeah, please. Sorry, anybody at all have any questions on behalf of themselves or their clients?
Greg, HAPCO obviously does a lot to support great rental property owners, but how does it handle when it gets reports of bad rental property owners?
That's why that's where our PR marketing firm comes in. They're great. We actually have produced, they're great. They're former TV people, which is interesting. You would recognize their faces from being on TV. What they do is we put together what we call Sally videos. And also we put together videos of our own members who, you know, one in particular was an African-American woman who just got out of the service and bought a triplex and right before COVID, and what she went through with that property, it was really unbelievable. But so we actually put positive spins. We have some people out there. One of the things HAPCO has done is we've joined with a bunch of nonprofits in the city. They all know HAPCO, and we're the first ones to get a phone call when they have, let's just take this recent influx of migrants into the city. Got a call from one of their people asking, hey, can you put the word out? And of course we put the word out. But the problem right now is as everyone knows, is that the low to moderate income housing has gone from bad to worse. Before COVID, we were 40,000 units short. That was before COVID, 40,000. We're over 100,000 now. It's like ridiculous. I had a friend just put in Overbrook, just put a place up, single family home, put a place up, 500 hits in about a day. 500. So she's never gotten 500 in a year, you know. So there's not much out there. People that are looking to invest in things. I mean, look, here's the problem with the low to market income housing right now. Let's say you just, like I just got my taxes increased by a tremendous amount. The problem being at the low end of the totem pole, you can't get blood out of a stone. You can't raise it to the point where you say, you know, I get a little bit back. But you can only raise it to the point that these people don't have that much money. So you have to take into consideration that any increases are going to have to be minimal at best. And that's where the problem is. But again, I have friends that are in it. I have friends that are doing very well, but they're on their P's and Q's. And as they have told me many, many times, it's a different ball game. It's much, much harder right now
Well, Greg, I have a question, because it's not only the taxes. I mean, obviously rates have increased so much. I mean, if you're going to be a rental property owner, it's a for-profit situation. I mean, what do you see as a solution there? People aren't going to buy rental properties just to lose money each month. I mean, that doesn't work like that generally.
Gee, I wish you would go with me to city council, because
I'm there. You know,
that's exact. But no, what you just said is what I said to them. Do you realize whether this person, this mom and pop, owns 1 unit or 40 units? They're in business to make money.
Yeah.
This is not charity. And unfortunately, another really good statistic is 38% of all mom and pops are on Social Security. In other words, all they're doing is using this as a supplement to their income, because we all know how little you get on Social Security. And it's unfortunate. It really is. But that's what it is. And what I keep trying to tell anybody in City Hall, I said, anybody here, Paul Cohen, by the way, has a property that he's offered to anyone in City Council to take over, and not one of them will do it. Not one. It's his last property, because here's a lawyer. He's gone too. But again, you can make money. Where do you make it at? I mean, you have to be smart. You have to obviously, you got to buy low, and you got to come in, and you got to know your tenants, and you got to know I walked around when I first bought. I buy any property in anywhere. I walk that neighborhood. I talk to people. I find out what the hell is going on. Second property I ever got, it was across from a nuisance bar. Guess who I met one day? The local policeman that walked around that neighborhood. Yeah, back then they walked. I asked him about it. I said, I'm looking at this property right across the street. I'm a little worried. He says, don't worry. We're going to shut it down in 2 weeks. Well, guess what? In 2 weeks, they shut it down. I bought the property before they shut it down. I went that day, signed over. They shut it down. It became a church. Made out like a bandit. But no one wanted the property because of the problems with it. How did I get it? Because I walked the neighborhood and talked.
Anybody else? Questions, comments?
Hey, Greg, what do you think are some good resources for landlords to get educated on and more up to date on different, like newer policies?
Oh, HAPCO, no doubt about it. So this handbook right here, what's great about this. So
that would be the point of this entire thing, Zach.
You know what's great
of HAPCO.
What we have.
I was thinking more so like expanded from HAPCO. So I've been to a couple of HAPCO meetings, right? Like there's definitely a lot of education there, but like other things like fast up to date. Like, are there like resources from the city you would recommend, or what do you think?
From the city, no. Really, the only again, for me in particular, I mean, it's really hard. Let's just take the Eclipse system, right? You're familiar with it, right? You want to get a license? Got to go through the Eclipse system. It's an interesting system. Outdated, outmoded, and unfortunately it was taken off the shelf and it doesn't fit what it's supposed to do. That's basically the problem. And by the way, you know who told me that? Maria Quiono Sanchez told me that, along with Derek Green said the same exact thing. They go cheap, and this is what they end up with. With the city itself, I wouldn't rely on them for anything. My best recommendation is get involved in the groups that you're involved in. There's other groups out there. I know there's things on Facebook that you can get involved in those groups. What's the other one? I can't remember. There was one over in Manayunk because I used to speak there. I don't think that's around anymore. But yeah, I mean, you have to get involved in these smaller groups, and there's a lot of information. There's a lot of information, and there's a lot of disinformation as well, because what we're doing right now is we're monitoring some of these Facebook groups as well as our own Facebook, and we're finding out that, yeah, there's some good stuff out there, but there's some things out there that are totally off the wall. They don't know what they're talking about.
I totally agree. Totally agree. Anybody else? I have one final one, but I'll leave it to anybody else if they have a question.
I actually have a question. It's Antonella. I actually was on a call with Paul with a GPAR meeting last month, and he was great, I have to say. And I just became a member of HAPCO, and I haven't been able to find this on the website. I know landlords need another document, like besides the license and besides the rental suitability. Does anyone know where I can find info on that? Because I want to give that to my clients. Paul had mentioned it. I think it has to do with the bed bug policy, and there's just something else that's coming to the city.
So there's a what they call a bed bug addendum that you give them. That is on the city website. You can pull it up from the city website. They do have that on a city website.
You know where? I can't find it anywhere. And I was on the calls with that when they were doing it, and I just still can't find it.
Where is it? I don't know offhand, but I definitely know because I pulled it up myself, which I'm not that great, but you can find it. Do me a favor. Tomorrow, call the office. I'll be there, and I'll get that information for you. And if I'm not there, leave your name and what the question is, and I'll get back to you along with your contact information, and I'll get back to you. The other one is the good housekeeping thing in Philly. That comes off the Philadelphia website.
No, I had that, the partners in good housing, but I heard there's going to be even another form, like just to make us do even more stuff as landlords. Do you know what that's going to be?
Not yet. It's not.
Okay.
It's there yet. No, I mean, who knows? But it's not there yet. What was the other thing? There's there. No, it wasn't that. So the also lead paint. You know, when you
I'm a lead paint inspector, that I know.
Right, so you know all about the lead paint, what you need to do with that as well, right? Yeah, the city doesn't make it easy, and then you have this crazy Eclipse system, which is the worst system in the world. And unfortunately, I just got a phone call from somebody, they're trying to do an eviction, and the city says that the building does not exist. And they have all the paperwork, thank God. But there's 6 houses on their block that they say don't even exist. So it's not only theirs now, they found out there's 5 more, and they're trying to evict, and they can't, they're having a heck of a time.
You just brought up one more thing. I just noticed a lot of my tenants or landlords are calling me saying that if they're out of Pennsylvania, they need to have a agent on Eclipse.
Yep.
So would that be us? And if so, can we charge for that? Like, do we have to do anything in addition to our clients?
I don't know why not. Sure, why not? Yeah. And again, you know, the other thing is you have to make sure your contact information is posted in the building, preferably where they walk in.
The agent's contact information has to be posted, or the owners, or both?
Whoever the contact person, let's say you're managing it for somebody else, then your name would be there.
So Todd, when people go to renew their license on Eclipse, it says if you live out of state, you have to name an agent.
I thought it was out of county, not out of state. Maybe I could be wrong.
I think it's out of county.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, New Jersey isn't like New Jersey. It's still
Well,
like,
yeah, but if you lived on like the main line, sorry, was the example I was saying.
Right.
I think you still need to do it. Sorry.
Right. That's why I have a lot of people calling me if they can list me, and I'm like, what is this now? Another thing that I have to list on.
Yeah, you can thank that one came from Marge Krzyzinski up in the Northeast when she was running her little fiefdom up there, and she used to run around and say, "Oh, there's a rental property owner. Who's the owner?" You know, and it's like, I don't know, who knows, but
here is some encouraging news, and I mean this sincerely. I feel this way a lot. Like, I wake up some days, I'm like, what the hell am I doing trying to earn a living this way? But then I remember that I have people in my life like HAPCO, like Grid, like my friends at Coldwell Banker, and everywhere else across the industry, because this business is easier when you remember you're not on an island. And HAPCO is one of the leading resources. And look, I'll speak for Greg and I'll speak for HAPCO in this. Membership is great, but involvement is even better. And for the younger folks, my age and even younger, if you are, getting involved is key, because we're the future of this business. And the current leadership at HAPCO can only do so much to help us. It is now our turn to step up. Greg, any closing remarks?
Yeah, closing remarks. And I'm glad when I became the president, my big push was to get younger people. I'm not stupid. I was a vice principal of a performing arts school, became the #1 school in the city. And it didn't become that way overnight. But one of the things that we did was we went out and recruited. We didn't even have to, because of the great student teachers we had, that we said, here's a great teacher. We need to keep this person. And we got from the union, because back then it was seniority, we got from the union the okay, as long as 85% of the faculty agreed, and they did, we could pick our own teachers, and we didn't have to go through the seniority system. And that alone changed everything. It was a great school. It became the greatest school because of that. And the old teachers learned from the new, and the new teachers learned a little bit from the old, and it became a beautiful thing. And that's what we need in HAPCO. We need more young people to step up, join, get involved. I have purposely, you're never going to believe this one, my other big thing is there's 24 board members. Right now there's 16. I'm about to get rid of a couple more, because I'm trying to get it down so that I can bring on younger people onto the board and get this thing changed even more than what I'm doing. I mean, I'm not that smart, but I have a vision. And once I'm almost there with my vision, I'm close. The HAPCO handbook and the lease are the last two, or one of the last two. But my most important thing, and I still haven't accomplished it yet, is to get more people involved in HAPCO and on the board. And that's where we go. By the way, one more last thing. The one thing I really am adamant about is that because of the way the political culture is in this city, and it's not great at the state, but the city, we're thinking about hiring a lobbyist, which will be huge. HAPCO does belong to a state organization called PROA. I'm not real happy with who they have as their lobbyist, but unfortunately, because we have a Democratic governor and a Republican-controlled Senate, it's one of these and nothing ever gets done. There is, by the way, a wonderful bill out there that will kill, I hate to even say the word, rent control, which we have that in the city. A lot of people, those 3 young ladies I told you about, those 3 councilwomen are definitely chomping at the bit to get that thing going. You know, that's coming. It's always been there. And that's another thing that HAPCO has kept at bay. And if we're not there, look out. That's all I have to say. People don't get it, but the last thing we want in this city is rent control. It's
well, I think that could be a whole nother topic for a whole nother call. Absolutely. But I agree. Greg, thank you so much Absolutely. For your time. I appreciate it. Absolutely. If anybody here wants to get more involved, I'm a HAPCO member, obviously, but get more involved, please reach out to me as well. Happy to share my experiences. Before we conclude, I want to remind everyone that on December 15th is our next grid call. It's on the state of the market and opportunities in 2023. I believe Matt will be spearheading that. And as always, thank you to our 2 sponsors, Washington Capital, Connor, and Connie, who was on the call from Keystone Title Services. Everybody, thank you. Have a great Thanksgiving, and we will talk to you soon.